at Stanford University. Dr. Azizi was the chairman of Afghanistan Telecom Regulatory Authority from 2050 to 2019, and now served as senior fellow at Afghanistan Information Services and Skill Organization. And finally, Badajarsayam, human rights attorney from Armenia, focuses on international human rights litigation and research. LMM candidate at University of Pennsylvania Carey Law School, USA. Then after they finalize all the presentation, we're going to start the discussion in where we can participate in chat, the Q&A box, taking the floor, or being in a dry spot that we will be sharing with you at the moment we're going to start the discussion. So after this introduction, our first speaker will be Eileen Cejas with the topic of gender perspectives impact on the internet matters related to policy drafting. Eileen, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Juan. I'm going to my slide. So, okay, here we are. Okay, hello everyone. Good morning, afternoon, evening, depending on your time zone. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I am Eileen Cejas, as Juan presented me. I'm part of the Youth Observatory, also known as YouthSeek, Regional Engagement Director. And I'm part of the Youth Coalition on Intergovernance as the representative for the GRULAC region. So today we are going to discuss, as Juan said, different aspects related to policy drafting of inclusion matters. So first of all, I'm going to address about the gender perspectives and the impact that it causes related to policy drafting. So there are some key aspects to consider that one size does not fit all. That means that's a possible solution that we can think about couldn't be applied for all the countries at the same time. Because we can see there are different multicultural backgrounds, so it's very important to consider that and to be cultural sensitive. Regarding the aspect, I would say it's very important to, before applying for a certain way to legislate on these matters, to also see about the different points of view of societies. Going back to what I have been saying about the metaphor of the rabbit and the turtle, that you may know about, this metaphor is very well known from the Diplo's book, The Introduction to Intergovernance. It means that first of all, we have the changes that starts at the internet, and then we have the laws, the legal frameworks in the different countries. Following this idea, most of the changes, as I was saying, start as internet discussions at forums like the IGF and similar forums, and later it becomes a law applicable to the different countries. However, we can see that generally the law is behind the changes implemented by the new technologies, because the implementation of these new technologies bring to us different challenges that when it was, for example, if we have, let's say, a law on copyright, the first thing that the first policymaker thought, what about how to protect the intellectual property of a book? And then it becomes more changes with the internet and other technologies. So you can see that this is very important to take into consideration, that first we have to build from these internet discussions, and then we can start discussing legal frameworks in our countries. So I'm going also to bring to the table the BPF's Gender and Access Report, which was published, I think, a couple of days ago. And this report brings some examples of topics under analysis. For example, it's analyzed about what has been happening from the IGF in past years and also this year, when it sees that most of the discussions are being focusing on the negative sides rather than the positive sides of inclusion. And also, which I think is very concern for us, is that there is a tendency to only address women and girls matters. That's very partial, because there are few mentions to gender diverse people matters. Taking the possibility to be speaking with you today, I think that's something that we should work on, not only from this IGF, that we have the possibility to be together virtually, that we don't have, or at least we have less than a barrier to access, because everyone can participate in almost equal possibilities. We can say that it's important that we start discussing about this, and also to improve the IGF for the future. And this reflection is applicable to other places, as I was saying, on implementing a legal framework, that it should focus on including more people represented, right? As I was saying, I see there is a need to amplify gender diverse voices. As we can see in some countries, it's very critical. It's a very critical topic to be addressed, and we have to address it urgently. So some examples of a way to amplify these gender diverse voices is because they suffer discrimination, hate speech, threats in the worst case scenarios, censorship of content, and from that we can have a quick mention to biased algorithms and how they are built, thinking of heteronormative norms, which is well, very, very bad for gender diverse people. I'm not sure if I'm good for time, but in any case, Juan, you can interrupt me. But I want to also bring to this little conversation, these 5 minutes, to discuss a lot of topics about a program that I'm part of, which is called Youth for Digital Sustainability. So this program was following what has been implemented and learned from last year's Youth IGF Summit. So this year we are trying, well, we focus actually in 4 working groups. One of those working groups is called Internet for Social Cohesion. And in one of the topics that we discussed was about women and gender diverse. So this is the message that we came from the discussion at our group, that says women and gender diverse people are facing restrictions in accessing information on the internet and participating meaningfully. To establish healthy and equal societies, youths should urge governments and civil societies to guarantee the rights to freedom of online expression for these communities. Okay, so I think that's my time.
Yeah,
Okay,
you were about right time.
excellent. Okay, well, I'm going to pass you the virtual microphone to you, Juan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for all that input. I know it's a lot to cover because gender is actually something that covers a lot of things, but thank you for your presentation. Now we're going to pass the floor to Mamadou. He will be present the markets and economics equality when prices and taxes prevent people from being connected. Mamadou, the floor is yours, and we are here to hear you. Mamadou, are you there? Hi, we can hear you.
And I think
We
his
cannot hear
audio is
you.
not working well. Maybe we can try with
Yeah,
Deborah or
we
Mary.
will. Yeah, I think right now we're going to Deborah. Yeah, and she will be presented techniques to include people from rural, indigenous, and remote areas into digital literacy. So, Deborah, the floor is yours.
Yes, hello. Thank you, Juan. Thank you, Eileen, and all the fellow speakers, and for organizing this nice session, and also to the people who are listening to us. Please support sessions that are led, organized by young people. It's really important, and this IGF is really nice because it's having many of such sessions. And also thank you for the people who are assisting technically with captioning and all this stuff, because sometimes they're not visible, but they're really important and really often are young people themselves. So I just wanted to spend a few seconds thanking them. So I'm here humbly trying to point out some of the main issues regarding inclusion of people from rural, indigenous, and remote areas when it comes to digital literacy in particular. And I will start by trying to demystifying some of the stereotypes regarding these areas, because already when we read rural, indigenous, and remote areas, it's like in our mind there are some stereotypical images. And already if you look on Google, you find some peculiar images, and myself, I had difficulties in finding a right image to kind of trying to figure these areas, which main point is to be kind of unique actually, also within their national contexts. Because when talking about these areas, these communities in global environments such as the IGF, we figure out only certain kind of characteristics. So we think about, of course, some countries from Sub-Saharan Africa or some parts of India or other realities that in certain environments are looked in a kind of a vertical and kind of agglomerating way, but they're not really giving the idea of what is the uniqueness of these communities. I come, for instance, from the south of Italy, and in Italy, it's a rather small country, but there is a huge diversity of rural and remote areas that have their own characteristics. So what this is a huge problem, and I really like the expression that Eileen used before. So one size doesn't fit it all. So when it comes to policies that should address the problems and the needs of those areas, we should really take into account the diverse needs and have an intersectional approach when it comes to these communities, all the differences and the peculiarities that they have, which are also their huge resource and their kind of precious aspect. Of course, it's also important to reflect on what do we mean with digital literacy, because of course there is the kind of framework of competencies that have been pointed out by UN, but also UNESCO, in which we think about digital literacy as something that has a set of skills and competencies, a framework to which countries, areas, and people should adhere. But in my opinion, and when thinking about inclusion at large, we should think of digital literacies as literacy in general as something that should enable people to know how to act rather than being acted upon. Because the approach that many policymakers or governments have regarding solving the issues of connectivity and digital literacy in this area, in these areas, is the fact that it becomes a problem when they try to reach these areas to propose some product or some innovation, which of course is not negative as a thing per se, but if it's the sole purpose for which enable connectivity and digital literacy in an area, of course, will look as sort of imposition from up. And this is one of the main challenges, because very often in these areas, there is no readiness to welcome such programs, such initiatives, because they look as coming from outside, and they're not seen as an internal need of the community. So one of the main things that policymakers, organizations launching programs in these areas is to involve local people, because community spirit, as I try to point out, is one of the main resources of these areas, because it means that the community is strong as its set of values and strong points. So if we are involving the people with a bottom-up approach, they will feel like every program, every policy belongs to them, thus enhancing their agency in program and their contribution to the success of them. Also, it's really important to point out that apart from being a very empowering process for these communities, this can be inclusive by default also for other parts of population that are usually excluded and marginalized, especially when it comes to connectivity. Eileen before mentioned women, but we also have the problem of elderly people. So having this kind of approach could represent a good practice at large on how policymakers should initiate programs in certain areas, designing them to respond to the needs of the people who are they're addressing, who are their targets. Because in this way, people would really feel like they are part of this process and they will be contributing to their success, or it will only be something coming from outside and making them some sort of products that would not really benefit their communities at large. But again, I would like to stress how it's important to have an intersectional approach, not only regarding the different parts of the communities we are mentioning, but also again their relationship with the nations, the countries at large. And the fact that, you know, if they belong to marginalized communities as well, and implementing resources and which are not only infrastructures, of course, and tools, but also human resources, trying to increase the competencies of this community and their sense of agency in this policy. So I think I am finished. But as we said before, I'm really curious to hear other inputs and my fellow speakers. So it's a really big topic. I'm really looking forward to hear also other experiences and practices on this point. So thank you very much. And Juan, the floor is yours again.
Thank you very much, Deborah, for your inputs about connectivity in rural areas and digital literacy in this. So we now going with Mary Darsajan. She will be speaking about policy, no, government a human right guaranteeing or digital right to include more voices in Connect. So We hear you right now, Mary.
Thank you, Juan, and hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this session, and I would like to join Deborah in thanking everyone that is helping us to run this session, and also the organizers, and also all the people in the audience. And we are looking forward to your active engagement after we are done with our initial remarks. So my name is Mary, and I have the huge topic of government and human rights, and the overarching theme is how they can guarantee our rights and also ensure inclusion. Well, this is a very big topic, and we also have the policy questions coming up, so I will try to keep my remarks rather short to allow for more time for our policy discussions. And as this is a very big topic, I tried to bring it down to three main points that I would like to highlight. So the first one is access. Well, this year especially, we saw the role of internet as no year before, because as a result of this pandemic, almost all aspects of our lives were dependent and are still dependent on internet, and this includes such areas as work, commerce, in education, and many other fields. And this means that the governments, in order to provide and guarantee our digital rights, the first step is to provide access to internet. And even using this point in time when we are in this global pandemic is not an excuse to shut down the internet or do this for other, political and other objectives that they may have. Unfortunately, we have many different governments all over the world, and you know better than me that this is a big issue in itself. So the message here is that governments need to ensure access to internet to allow for further access to the digital rights. In other words, they need to keep it on. My second point is about digital literacy. I envision this as an underlying issue for all groups, and this is a unique unwritten precondition to full enjoyment of your digital rights. And in my opinion, by enhancing the level of digital literacy, the governments actually create a very solid base for safeguarding various aspects of rights, and also in a way they are actually preventing further issues. And digital literacy should include understanding of digital rights in the first place, starting from privacy and data protection, so that people have more control and over their data. They understand what could be done and what aspects are still open to debate, and how can they better advocate for their rights. Then we have the understanding of the importance of verifying your information. We live in a very difficult times of finding out the truth, and this means that every citizen, regardless of their background, their age, or citizenship, they need to understand how they can verify the information that they need, how they can check it to understand which information they can trust and share forward, because a lot of people are simply not equipped with these skills. But I believe in this age, especially this year, when we're also finding something already coined as infodemic, we need to have this as a mainstream thing happening all over the world, and the governments as the ones providing especially the basic primary education and education going forward, they need to implement sound policies with this regard. And this also includes such topics as internet health and hygiene, because now, as I said, we are all online, and being aware of how you can protect yourselves online is also in a way part of digital literacy. Therefore, as I said, measures should be undertaken to ensure better understanding and knowledge of digital literacy for all age groups. And last but not least, we are at the Internet Governance Forum, and we see many different stakeholder groups. And a lot of issues, as we already understand, include very different but relevant actors. And as I'm talking about governments and human rights, governments are the only actors in this ecosystem that we as citizens of our countries elected. Well, we can debate on whether everything was democratic and legitimate or not, but that is a topic of another discussion. In any way, they are our official representatives. And in my opinion, they need to enhance and embrace in a way their role as government in this ecosystem. Because originally, if you take the example of speech online, originally everything was left to self-regulation. But right now we are seeing the other, in a way, extreme of governments trying to regulate everything. And this is also not something that we would like to see everywhere. Because
sorry, Mary, you have 1 minute left. If you can wrap up, would be great.
I was almost done. So
Okay.
this is a topic, thank you, Juan. This is a topic that we are going to discuss later during our policy discussions. I will not talk about this for long, but my point is that governments need to become more actively involved in the multi-stakeholder processes and the dialogue, because my personal feeling and also my research says that governments are, especially some governments are very active, but others are missing from the scene, and this is a huge problem for their citizens. So I will just stop here and we'll get back to this topic when we discuss our policy questions. I look forward to our discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary, for all your inputs. So now I ask to Mamadou if he is ready to present his topic. Hello, Mamadou, we can't hear you. I think he still have problems. We can hear you. We can hear you pretty well. Yeah. There's, I think he had connection problems. Yeah, we're missing 2 panelists. No, we can hear you very well. We cannot hear you, Mamadou. So I don't. No.
I think you can try to go out and come back.
But
let me try to reconnect.
no, I can. We can hear you right now.
Yes.
Yes, it's good now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I'm going very fast on that because I have because as is I am late right now. For my presentation, I am Mamadou. I am the head of information department of La Banque Agricole Senegal. I am also an ICANN fellow alumni and Diplo alumni, and former IGF my member. Also, I am currently working with Diplo Foundation as curator and also dealing with issues on internet and multilingualism. I'm also administrator of internetgov.news website, a documentation platform aiming to provide information on internet governance. That's all for my presentation. Coming back to the discussion on the subject on marketing economic inequalities, with price and taxes. I would like to bring out 2 aspects to tackle this topic, to set out possible discussion on the issue our group intend to deliver here. Those issues are in order: the national initiative to tackle digital inclusion and international initiative on the subject. On national initiative, I would like to say that, as you know, the biggest barrier to internet access right now today is cost. The internet is still not affordable for many around the world. And as we know, this applies to good data, which is too expensive for many people in low economic countries, in low income countries, excuse me. As you know, for those who cannot afford to buy an internet-connected devices, the online world remains out of reach. Therefore, bringing down the cost of mobile devices is essential to get people online to reach digital inclusion. By now, I would like to bring out the context of COVID-19 is a discussion which has underlined that the internet and the devices that allow people to access it are no more luxuries, as we know. These devices are mandatory for access, and government should be setting policy accordingly to ensure as many people as possible can afford them. And to avoid a world where digital inequalities drive further inequalities in health, wealth, and so education. In terms of widening internet use, countries, above all the underdeveloped countries, would face several challenges, as you know, including cost of both data and use and device cost, as I said earlier. Now challenges are still on policy and regulatory reform that will allow price to be reduced. Following all that, one question has to be asked. I think it is a very important question for me. What a really competitive digital market brings to digital inclusion? What a really competitive digital market brings to digital inclusion? I think this question has to be answered by government along all we stakeholders managing digital policy. But anyway, we need to have policy, regulatory framework, ensuring market competition. This is very important. Industry structure balance so as to lower the price of internet equipment. The second item I would like to bring out is the international aspect relating to the moratorium on custom duties for digital trade by the World Trade Organization. As we know, since 1998, the World Trade Organization members have agreed not to impose custom duties on electronic transmission like software. This moratorium has been extended every 2 years since 1998. But however, a group of developing countries pushed for the end of this moratorium, arguing that the digitalization of goods and services are significantly weakened their ability to connect custom revenue. As for that, it is interesting to see how the moratorium of the WTO has impacted digital inclusion, and should World Trade Organization continue on that or not, eliminating taxes for digital goods. And then one question very interesting to be asked. 1 minute is Juan, to be asked is who has benefited most of that? The private business sector for not paying taxes, gaining more money, or the society as a whole benefiting from affordable internet devices because of tax-free? I think these questions are wide open, and we need to see how we can tackle that internet device to have more affordable internet. Mr. Chair, that's all for me for now. Waiting for your question and contribution. Thanks, Juan.
Thank you, Mamadou. And then right now, we're going to start the second part of this discussion. It's going to be about more like an open question and participation from all of you. You can do it through the chat, asking the floor, or 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 writing in the link or to the right spot that we're going to share right now. So yes, let's start with the second part. Oh, yeah. A link, you just share the link to the right spot. It's on the chat.
Okay, now we have shared with everyone. Hello, everyone again. So now at this part, the idea is that we can talk more in detail because I saw that you were commenting on the chat, so I think it would be a good idea to also, if you want to speak up, not only to write on the document, share camera if you want. And so at this part of the session, we are going to discuss in 3 blocks. So the first block, we are going to speak about gender perspectives in internal governance matters and economic inequalities that Mamadou just presented. So to start, I'm going to ask you, and of course you can speak up, is how we can bring more tools for women and gender diverse people in order to foster their involvement in internet governance. So you can type or you can speak up, it's up to you. So I guess by now everyone is a panelist or not yet.
I can go ahead and then unmute the people that have their hands raised, and then
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so I have Rahan Hopseipan who raised the hand. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And I just want to mention that each and every stakeholder group that we want to be more active, first of all, they should understand the importance of their engagement, that their voice can be heard and their voice can be taken into account and can be crucial for the process. So first of all, I think that it is very important for them to understand that they can make a change. Even one voice can make a change. That is the thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your inputs.
Okay, thank you. Just a note. So those who are not speaking, you can close your mic, and you can also write on this document. So who wants to go next?
Not yet.
Innocent, I think you want to
You
go.
reached 66 shares. But it's progressing. So now, wait. Or you're also going to go to my page and share.
You share that.
Oh, can you help me, Juan? We have some issues with mic. Yes, I'm
Please,
going.
everyone that he has their mic open, please close because I cannot do it. I think everyone now close their mic.
Okay, great. Let me see.
Can you repeat the question, Aileen, for everyone?
Yes, sure. So now we are addressing the first question, which is about how we can bring more women and gender diverse people in order to foster their involvement in the internet governance environment. Okay, so we have a document for first. I'm going to read out loud. The UN Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction sets a broader scope for inclusion. Okay, I'm going to copy your comment. Let me see. Okay. Okay, so anyone who wants to go, you can raise your hand. Okay, so we have Gustavo, and I missed the other hand.
Hello, I will write my point in the document in just a minute, as soon as I can gather my thoughts fully. But I have a point regarding not specifically women, but gender diverse people and people with non-traditional sexual orientations, aka not straight people. I think that the IGF has this, the IGF and the UN system as a whole, by virtue of being, let's say, the main bastion of protecting human rights in the world, it naturally conveys an image of accepting gender diversity and sexual orientation diversity. I think we have that. That's great. I think that to that extent, it's easier bringing in these people, gender diverse people and sexual orientation diverse people, into the IGF. That said, when you're talking about us as the youth, perhaps actions speak louder than words. Maybe this is a point for the next year. This is not something for now, but there could be some thought into bringing LGBT teams into a session next year. That would be a way to convey very securely just our position about this issue. And that would be an invite. It would be a silent invite. And whenever we are trying, or we want to bring in more people, or we have someone who is in doubt whether they want to join or not, because of this, of sexual orientation points or gender diversity, some of these people are very shy. They're very used to being rejected or not being included or just being sidelined very quietly. So when we do this silent invite. I think that would convey a lot to a lot of people, and it would do a lot to actually getting them to participate instead of just joining and sitting on the sidelines. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Gustavo.
Thank you,
Since you put it
Gustavo.
very nicely, I will give you the opportunity to write it. Yeah, sorry, Juan.
Don't worry, Aileen. Actually, this year I asked for a informal session. I think that's the call for women and gender diverse people, because I think it's a thing that we have to address here. And I'm a non-binary person, and I think that there is no representation of us in very much anything. And that's why I decided this year to organize the system, a kind of networking for women and gender diverse people and their future in the internet. So if anyone wants to be there, well, you are all invited.
Thanks for the reminder, Juan. Yes, please, if you want, you can share the link so everyone can save it on the agenda. So I'm not sure how much time do we have for this segment, but however, I think we can go on the second question, which is related to economic aspect.
I think Chris had his hand up. If He still
Okay.
wants to intervene.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I'm aware of the time constraints, so I certainly don't want to take up too much time. I just wanted to note. I think Gustavo had a very good point about sort of organizing sessions that sort of can accommodate diverse groups and the interests of diverse groups. One thing I would say in terms of taking maybe a step back is the importance of making sure that as we encourage people to join, we're aware of and have taken steps to mitigate maybe the problems that exist in those venues, those forums that may have previously been causing people to feel uncomfortable, causing people to feel that they couldn't participate. So I work for the RIPE NCC, which is Regional Internet Registry for Europe, Middle East, Central Asia. And we facilitate the work of the RIPE community, which is sort of an open technical community. And RIPE's actually been doing some work recently on, it's had a diversity task force, and part of its work has included looking at a code of conduct for how people behave in the community, both in meetings physically, but also even on mailing lists. So looking at what acceptable behavior, language, etc. Actually is. And I think particularly in some of the more long-standing venues, and RIPE has been there since the 1980s, there are perhaps approaches or attitudes that really people may not even be aware of the problems that they cause for other people or the limitations they put on other people's participation. So it's important for those groups to look at their own dynamics, their own processes. That's one point. And the other point is, I think it's also important to share information about how we're doing that. So, I mean, I know the IETF is also doing this. I know other RAR communities are doing this. I'm sure there are others outside my immediate realm of awareness that are also doing this. So sharing that information in a discussion like this is really important as well, just to try and raise awareness of that there may be issues there that you don't even see because you've been so deeply embedded in that system. So sorry, that was all I wanted to say.
Thank you very much, Chris. Indeed, I got thinking about the thing of having this code of conduct and to work on anti-harassment policies, which I think it was mentioned also at the BPF report that I mentioned. Not sure if we have any more hands or comments. Okay.
I have a comment. Building on top of, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name, but building on top of what the previous speaker was saying, I was reminded that there is a problem I'm not talking about the IGF or the UN, I'm talking all around the world. There is a problem of tokenism. This is something which we as youth, we have already faced in previous years. The idea of being included as this little token just to establish diversity. When it comes to LGBT issues in particular, and also women, like the inclusion of women, this becomes particularly egregious because it is so overwhelmingly often that when LGBT topics are included, they are always the same 3 or 4. It's a very, very narrow understanding of LGBT issues, and quite often it becomes a matter of posturing, of just not really advancing a discussion. So maybe that is something we should include if we go along with the idea of making LGBT team sessions. Make them meaningful, make them advance specific issues that substantively, like objectively, affect LGBT and gender diverse people. There is another comment here which I thought was very insightful from Peter Crosby. Just to say, I'm just going to read it, just to say there's a real crossover between gender diversity and cognitive disabilities, in particular autism. Many autistic people are gender diverse and or diverse in sexual orientation. which once again comes back to questions of accessibility, and in particular cognitive accessibility. I think that is exceptionally insightful, Peter, and I have actual direct experience with this. So over the years, I have created a group of people whom I consult whenever I have internet governance issues, which are well beyond my spectrum of experience. And I have 2 people in this small group who are in the spectrum, in the autism spectrum. And I think that I've seen this firsthand. Sometimes they have very insightful opinions about what should be done in internet governance. But because this is a field, a professional field that is so intense, it is so socially intense that they cannot directly participate, or they could only do that at the cost of immense emotional distress. So I really appreciate your comment, Peter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gustavo. We have 2 hands raised. We have Amrita and Deborah. I think we can have some more minutes. It's very interesting, the discussion.
Thank you, Eileen. Amrita here for the records. I just wanted to say that if we want to have more gender diverse voices in the discussions and the IGF, and to build capacity, first of all, we need to make these spaces kind of secure for them to converse, which is important. The other most important thing is, for example, even if you look at the IGF registration, is it gender diverse friendly? We have a Mr. and Mrs., but do we have for others who do not want to kind of align to Mr. and Mrs.? So these are small steps which can help to make people who are diverse more comfortable. I think those are small steps. We need to understand their sensibility, and based on that, as you mentioned, the first line that one size does not fit all, we need to understand their concerns. We need to understand why they are not, coming in more mainstream in internet governance discussions, and then design capacity building sessions. But firstly, we need to make them welcome. We need to make them trust these platforms. Thank you.
Very great reflection, Amrita. Thank you. We have Deborah.
Yeah, just
if you want to go short.
Really short, because I agree with everything that's being said. And the fact that, a small code of conduct, for instance, for the pronouns are really important to guarantee a safe space for more people. And there are small things that many people don't even know about. So in such a global and large community, something that should be pointed out to become kind of a new custom, in interaction, in social interaction, in such big fora. And always keep in mind intersectionality, as Gustavo pointed out in the comment by Robert. There is the intersection on diverse groups that really matters. So the intersectional approach is really important. And plus, to avoid tokenism, also we should stop to expect certain groups, such women, people belonging to LGBT group, people with disability, only to be present and on sessions like on inclusions, on diversity, accessibility. But we should make safer spaces for them also in sessions on AI, data governance, and all the other sessions. Or we, of course, risk to be have this tokenism. It's the same with youth participation, that we are always in session on youth participation, but maybe it's more difficult to access and to be actors in the other session. So just this. And thank you everyone for the contributions on the right side.
Thank you very much, Deborah. Juan, you can tell me how we are with this.
Well, we have to go into the second segment right now. Actually, we are really beyond the time, but the conversation was so good that I
Okay, well, okay. For the second question of the first block, you can still write, on the document. And now we are going to the second block, and I'm going to pass the floor to Mary and Deborah.
Yes, just very briefly introducing the topic, and then I would really love to hear from you. So as I said during my initial remarks, governments need to play a better role, a more active role. And one of the topics that we are dealing with on daily basis basically is about online content moderation. And as I said, we went from self-regulation to more national regulation right now. And I do not believe that either is the best solution. So how can we find a middle ground? And in this discussion, I will just rephrase the policy question this way. So what measure steps should governments take to ensure digital rights protection while regulating harmful content online? In other words, what role do you envision the government to play in this whole big topic of online content moderation and how they can embrace their role better? So I would really like to hear from you, and I give the floor to Deborah.
Okay, again, thank you, Mary. And just 1 minute to maybe give an example of a good practice of things that government can implement together with civil society when it comes to internet and media literacy access, especially for disadvantaged rural areas. For instance, there are this project that is called Wireless for Communities that started as an empowerment measure and at a community information resource center. So, you know, it started from the needs from the community, and then following on that, there were the implementation on infrastructures and policies from governments to follow up on these proposals. So my questions, the policy questions that is following is really easy. So, you know, it's just really brainstorm and put on the floor whatever it's on your mind. So what should government do to guarantee fair access to internet and media literacy, especially in those areas? So floor is yours, and let's try to use this time in the best possible way. Thank you. And of course, you can raise your hand if you have something to say, like we did before with the other block. So if you want to contribute orally with the discussion, asking questions to me or Mary, and or if you want to share other good practices regarding inclusion or regulations, you're welcome.
We have a raised hand. You can go.
Thank you. I'm Ujjwal Kumar from Cuts International, Jaipur in India. On content regulation, as Mary pointed out, we have situation from self-regulation to the other extreme of very micromanagement or micro-regulation by the government. And the middle path, I think, would be for the government or for the forum like IGF to have certain principles, you know, do's and don'ts of the content. Because again, one size may not fit to all. In Europe or many other parts, there may be a content which may be offensive to the other parts of the world at times. So there should be a principle-based approach in the sense that do's and don'ts are clear, very of each country, and how they will implement should be left on the entity, the internet entity, to kind of do that. But if they violate, there should be some threat to some sanction to back it up. So I'm not saying that government should micromanage. One way could be to form an association of such content providing platform, and within that association, they should come out with an ombudsman. But at the same time, I have seen that living totally on self-regulation may not always work. So principles, yes, ombudsman can serve to some place, but there should be some sanction of for violating such do's and don'ts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else has any comments or any best practices, as Deborah mentioned, for digital literacy? Or, I mean, these topics are very wide and also very challenging, but this is why it is more important to have more discussions on these topics. So we invite you to just raise your hand or contribute to the Rise Path or in the chat. We would really like to hear from you.
Hi, everybody.
Yes, we hear you.
Yes, here, Mamadou. I would like to bring out here the debate happening right now between big tech like Facebook, Twitter, and the government. Big tech asking for more regulation, more state regulation, for them to do more on content regulation. Yes, it is actually a debate. I do not know how that applies to our discussion, but I think it's an interesting question happening right now. We have to see. Thank you.
Well, it seems they are very shy.
Or the topics are too challenging.
Yes, might be. But I see there are a lot of contributions still to the first block, so people are still writing. Timing, we know, is not the best, and this virtual IGF is even more strict because we just leave the room and time is up. It's kind of difficult, so we understand it's not ideal. But if you have suggestions, if there is something that you heard on this topic about media literacy or about other government measure, please feel free to contribute. It doesn't have to be written perfectly. Just bullet points, main ideas still works well. And I see that.
Deborah?
Yes, Paula.
I'm
go on,
sorry.
please.
Thank you. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know how to raise my hand from the mobile app. Just very quick comment. I'm Paola Galvez from Peru. An open internet leader this year. Actually, this is a very challenging matter, right? Because many proposals to regulate online content run the risk of unintentionally create more harm than the initial harms they try to combat, right? Here in Peru, we have 2 bills that try to regulate content, but actually policymakers do not understand which is the role of the social media platform. So in my opinion, I believe that a legitimate intervention must, first of all, aim for a minimum level of intervention, because it needs to be in accordance with the principles of necessity and proportionality in international human rights law. And here, Mary is the expert. But what I believe policymakers must do is require more transparency from the platforms in regards of their algorithms and on how they will manage the content, because we need to preserve freedom of expression. I believe that this is my 2 cents, and thank you all for all your insights and this conversation.
Thank you very much, Paula. for very important interventions. And we have also Shraddha.
Well, okay, we hear Shara, and then we pass to the third part of this.
And hi, I hope you can hear me. So yes, so I think Paula's point is very important, and we are seeing the implementation of that in India. I am a ISOC IGF Youth Ambassador this year from India, and the issue with what happened when Paula raised the point, it actually resonated very closely, because that is sort of what the government is doing with respect to personal data protection bill that India seeks to implement in the upcoming session of the parliament in the winter, which will be in December or January very soon. So I think the minimal intervention aspect should be stressed upon. And with respect to digital literacy, I would like to add one point, and that is the implementation of certain programs that are carried out by small and medium scale enterprises or companies. What they do is that they train engineers from rural or indigenous communities, and then soon after their training, they assimilate them within the company itself. So it's called as barefoot engineering, and it's gaining popularity these days, but it's still in its very nascent stage, and the awareness regarding the same is very low. So I think that should be stressed upon and maybe popularized a little bit, and should be seen as where it can lead to, because it's helping the youth of the community a lot in this regard. Thank you.
Well, we now moving to the third block. Thank you for all your inputs. Yes, we're going to the third part of this rice path. Don't forget you can still writing on the rice path to respond to questions.
Thanks, Juan. I'm going to allow Abdias to share the screen. Just tell me if it's working, Abdias.
If we have a minute, there's a comment from Ruth. I would like to comment for a moment.
Yes.
So may I proceed?
Yes, you can.
Oh, thank you. So Ruth, responding to Peter, she said, I wonder if part of the issue is that sessions are put together by working groups who are, to some extent, designing sessions for people like themselves and organizing in the working groups, which is not really accessible. I think you are on the point, Ruth. I think that this is just how I frame this issue. There are people who make, no, not people, but there are sessions that talk about inclusion within the community of internet governance. So these are sessions, let's say, about how to make a workshop inclusive, how to make a workshop, let's say, the necessity of bringing in a translator for sign language. This is inclusion inside internet governance. And there is a different approach, which is inclusion in the internet, which often it may talk, let's say, about how to add inclusive features to a platform. Let's say that. I think that is what happens. So like way too often, perhaps excessively often, we focus on how to make IGE, internet governance, more inclusive, which is good, but we cannot forget that perhaps our main goal, our thing here is for everyone else. We shouldn't be adding inclusion only for us. We should be adding inclusion to the whole world. Perhaps that is what I would say. This goes back to what we discussed, I think, in the previous panel about youth matters, which was, I think I said something along the lines of, there's a way too often we defended the points that we as youth care about, and not necessarily the points that youth worldwide need or are asking for. So maybe this set of issues, they have a common root. That's what I'm trying to say. Thank you.
Yes, actually, the conversation that you're having on the chat has to do a lot with the third point that we're going to discuss here, because we're going to discuss how to include disabled people, people with disability, and how this kind of session and are talking about inclusion, but it's not inclusion for everyone. So thanks for sharing that. Good. So now we're going to share exactly.
Let me see. I think Andreas is struggling a bit.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Well, we can help. So the idea of all of the discussion that we have been addressing in the past minutes, well, more than minutes, was to have different aspects of inclusion that we should consider. The input from Peter and Ruth, I think they are very valuable, because in order to make this online campaign, well, we need to consider other aspects that are very, very important. And in case you're fine, we can later talk with you to get some assistance if there are some things that we have missed. And also the people who are attending here, and they can continue writing on the document,
Yes.
so we can have more input. So Audias, when you're ready, you can share the screen.
Hello everyone, can you hear me?
Yes, Audias.
Okay. Hello. This session designing inclusion policies in internet policy in internet governance. To this moment, we have this goal about gender perspective impact on internet matters related to policy drafting. The people assisting this session talk about more LGBTIQ plus sessions, openness to gender diverse people, awareness to specific groups, more or only women panel or events, crossover gender diverse cognitive disabilities, and talk about intersectionality. In the second hand, we had a great discussion about markets and economic inequalities when prices and taxes prevented people from being connected. The people mentioned about half done, half an ombudsman, minimal necessary intervention, algorithmic transparency, necessary and proportionate intervention. So this is what I have to this moment.
Okay, thank you, Diaz. So now we moving to the last part, the online campaign, right, Aileen?
Yes, this is part of the online campaign. So there is actually a part that says additional ideas. So taking into account that, well, you can add some points that you think it would be important to have at this online campaign, not only about the topics, but also on the format. We are going to have this campaign in the, I guess, next 2 weeks or 3 weeks, depending how much time it would take us. So anyone who wants to speak, the floor is yours. We have Mamadou's hand. Yes, you can go.
Yes, I would like just to know if if he has raised the question of multilingualism and communication. I do not see that on the board. Multilingualism and communication, as Amrita has raised earlier.
We couldn't get to the question because, as you mentioned, there are a lot of topics within inclusion. So maybe we can work on them at the mind map. So if you have any thoughts or ideas, we can go. Or we have Deborah too.
No, just one request, because in the chat, they were Gustavo and Peter having a really good conversation when it was coming. So it's in the Rise pad, you can still write them. I think one posted again the link. So please, if possible, write down. We know it's been really difficult to find the right platform to ensure that, you know, the process here is participatory and also inclusive for people with different needs. But if you can, we are gonna copy paste your comment in the third block, and if you have more comment to add when it comes to these issues, especially for people with disabilities, can be part of the campaign too. So I don't know if something, what someone want to add anything on this point, because it's really relevant. And we're going to copy paste what is in the chat box, but I think it's fair also to give the opportunity for those people who wrote those points to speak up if they want to, if they feel confident, of course, to do it. But just to say that, you know, I really appreciated that discussion, and it's something that should be taken into account in the best possible way, even though, especially when you use free source tool, is not really easy.
Deborah, what I could actually do is I have a few thoughts about these actual issues of accessibility. I could actually try and compile the proper document for future use, or even perhaps to make a session next year. I think this is something which, the deeper we go, like we could actually make a session about just picking 2 points that Peter raised. We could, I'm fully confident we could make a session exclusively about online features for platforms or services which are friendly to people on the spectrum. Or we could do the same thing for people with dyslexia. This would be a substantive session that would leave the private sector with objective standards to try and achieve. That this could be like really important for a lot of people. And going back to the dichotomy I posited, that inclusion in internet governance and inclusion in the internet, this would be the case of, let's try and do something that is inclusion for the internet. We could do something, I don't know if you guys are aware of the project from ICANN, universal acceptance. So there are many services nowadays that never included non-standard characters. So let's say if you are Chinese and you want to write an email address with Chinese characters, for many services that would just be impossible. Why does it have to be that way? It isn't too complicated to change it. So ICANN did a whole project on the DNS and bringing universal acceptance. We could do something similar, not with universal acceptance, but with these diversity-friendly features for, let's say, that dyslexia or people on the spectrum.
Juan, we cannot hear you.
Sorry. Sorry, I didn't realize I was mute. So if anyone else has something to say, now is the moment. We are reaching the hour that we are finished this session. So if someone has something to say, please do it now. Okay. Well, it seems that anyone want to say anything right now? So before we close the session, we're going to ask you to turn on your cameras so we can make a picture for all of us.
Juan, are you taking the picture?
Okay, thank you very much to all of you. So it was a really insightful and great conversation about this topic. Now we know inclusion is more than we think, and accessibility is something that we need to talk about. So thank you very much for being here with us today.
Thank you very
Bye.
much. Big thanks
Bye.
to the IGF technical team, Lily and Muriel, I think, and the captioner, and to everyone for being with
And
us here.
Eileen, excellent session. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Keep in touch with your comments. You have the links.
Yes, of course. Send us email.
Bye.
Oh, I think we didn't share that. I can share very quickly about that. Oh, I'm not sure if I have it. Okay, so I'm going to type our emails on the chat. Maybe the rest of the speakers can help, so we can continue on the discussion for the online campaign. Okay, thank you. We can stop there.
Hello, bye.